My name is Rachel Morgan. I'm 34 years old. Right now, I'm pacing the hallway of a conference center in Austin, Texas. Just hours ago, I was giving a client presentation about optimizing digital funnels. Now, I'm standing in a beige carpeted corridor, holding my phone like it might electrocute me. Greg, my husband of 7 years, just told me he's divorcing me. Over the phone, while I'm out of state for work. And not just that, he already sold our condo, our home. His exact words were, "You'll need to figure out where you're going to live." Like I'm a tenant, like I'm the afterthought. Before I can continue my story, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, let me know in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is right now. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. I come from a family where everything looked good from the outside. Holiday cards, backyard barbecues, mom's Facebook albums curated like art galleries. But beneath the smiles were long silences, loaded stares, and a deep, desperate need to pretend. I learned early on how to keep up appearances, how to tuck the truth behind a smile and a "we're fine." And Greg? Greg was perfect at first, a real estate broker with just enough charm and ambition to dazzle a girl raised on the illusion of stability. We built a life in Chicago, in a sunny Lincoln Park condo with exposed brick and crown molding. It was our pride. At least, I thought it was ours. Back in the hallway, my heels echo off the tile as I step away from the doors, away from the fake laughter behind them. I ask him, barely keeping my voice even, "You sold the condo?" He chuckles. "Yeah, Chelsea and I need something bigger anyway." Chelsea. So it's official. The late nights, the untraceable work trips, the way he stopped saying goodnight unless I said it first, it all makes sense now. And the way he said her name, not an ounce of shame. Like I was the other woman. Like he was doing me a favor by calling. My fingers clenched so tight around the phone, my knuckles went white. I wanted to scream, throw the phone across the damn hallway. But instead, I said, "Sounds good, Greg." Flat, calm, ice. He thought he'd broken me. What he didn't know was that I wasn't just standing in a hallway. I was standing at the start of his downfall. Because the condo, it hadn't legally been ours for months. He signed it away during a refinance, never even asked why I wanted it in my name, just wanted the lower interest rate. Signed the papers while watching basketball. I ended the call. Didn't cry. Didn't even blink. Just walked back into the conference room, smiled at my client, and nodded while they spoke. But inside I was already planning. I knew the rules of this game now. And Greg? He was about to learn them. I didn't wait until I got back to Chicago. I stepped into a stairwell between sessions, pressed my phone against the concrete wall for signal, and called Erica Monroe. She picked up on the second ring. "Rachel?" "He sold the condo," I said. Silence. Then, "Wait, he what?" Erica's been my lawyer and friend for years. We met after I gave a seminar on personal branding for small business owners. She'd emailed to thank me, and we got drinks the next week. She's smart, blunt, and doesn't blink when someone drops a legal grenade like, "My soon-to-be ex sold my home." I explained everything. The call, the smugness in his voice, the mention of Chelsea like she was a bonus gift with purchase. Erica let out a breath through her teeth. "Rachel, The deed is in your name." I closed my eyes. I know. Months ago, when we refinanced for a better rate, Greg had been too distracted to care about the logistics. He skimmed the paperwork. I remember him signing while muttering about the Bulls blowing a lead. I'd suggested the title transfer for tax reasons. He grunted, shrugged, and signed. He signed it away. He never asked questions, never thought he had to, because Greg always assumed I was predictable, soft, naive. He never noticed I'd stopped being afraid of him. "He can't sell what he doesn't own," she said, her voice tightening like a noose. "That sale's void, and if he accepted money—" I heard the next word before she said it. Fraud. There it was, the silver bullet, the paper trail. The moment I stopped feeling like a victim and started feeling like a witness in his trial. Erica promised to pull the deed and send a notice to the buyer that the sale was invalid. She said, "We'll kill this before it's recorded. I'll draft a cease and desist tonight. You just get home." I leaned back against the wall, the cold concrete pressing into my spine, anchoring me. I wasn't powerless. I wasn't scrambling for survival. I was walking into a war I'd already started preparing for. Greg thought he could ghost me out of my own life, but I was the one holding the receipts and signatures. When I landed back in Chicago, the air felt heavier. It was cold in that early spring way where your bones don't trust the sun. I stepped off the plane, my suitcase thudding behind me, and called Erica from baggage claim. "We're good. The buyer's been notified. They're pissed but cooperative." I also emailed Greg a formal letter detailing the illegality of the sale and reminding him that he signed over the deed. "He'll blow up." "Good," she replied. In the cab home, I kept the window cracked. The wind needled my face, but I didn't close it. I needed to stay sharp, present. Greg underestimated me, and that was his first real mistake. The second was assuming I wouldn't fight back. I stood in the doorway of my Lincoln Park condo, the familiar creak of the hardwood under my heels echoing like a taunt. Everything was just as I'd left it. His jackets still slung over the back of the dining chair, his sneakers tossed carelessly near the entryway, the faint scent of his overused cologne clinging to the air like a ghost that hadn't gotten the memo. The space felt like a set now, a place pretending to be a home. The warmth had been sucked out of it. But I hadn't come back to cry in the kitchen. I'd come to claim what was already mine. I dropped my suitcase, walked straight to the file cabinet in the hall closet, and pulled the manila folder marked property. Inside, the deed, signed and notarized, showing my name and my name alone. Greg hadn't even asked to see it when the papers were filed. Just told me, "If it lowers our payment, I don't care. Do whatever." That indifference was going to cost him everything. My phone buzzed. A text. From him. "Greg, you're back. We need to talk. Call me." I didn't reply. Let him twist. Let him feel the silence. He showed up hours later, storming in like the king of some crumbling empire. The same tan pea coat, the same messy charm turned sour at the edges. He held Erica's letter like it was a piece of hate mail. "What the hell is this?" he barked at me, waving it at me. "You're telling me I can't sell the condo? It's half mine." I didn't flinch. No, it's not. I walked to the kitchen table, picked up the folder, and handed it to him. He blinked at the top line, sole ownership, Rachel Morgan. His mouth hung open for a second. What the f? After we refinanced, remember? I said, folding my arms. You signed off on the title transfer. You didn't read the paperwork again. The blood drained from his face. He looked like a man who just realized the game wasn't rigged in his favor anymore. That doesn't mean anything, he muttered. I already made a deal. The paperwork's in motion. No, Greg, it's void. I stepped closer. The buyer knows. Erica notified them. If you've taken any money, well, I hope you like explaining yourself in court. He scoffed. You wouldn't. Try me. He sat down on the arm of the couch like it might buckle under him. For once, the swagger was gone, replaced by something almost childlike. Panic, confusion, denial. But not regret. Never that. He ran his hair through his head, gripping the back of his neck like the weight of his stupidity was finally settling in. Chelsea and I are supposed to move next month. You'll need a new plan. That hit. Just for a second. The audacity. The arrogance. He'd been planning this whole thing like I was just a paper cut he could ignore. As if I hadn't made the very home he tried to sell. He looked up, his eyes suddenly sharp again. You don't want to make this ugly. I almost laughed. Greg, it's already ugly. You just finally took off the mask. Greg didn't take the hint. He lingered around the condo the next 2 days like he was waiting for a loophole to open up and swallow him into safety. He made coffee in my kitchen. He turned on my TV. He kept tossing me glances like we were still in some Cold War marriage, instead of enemies in a very real legal chess game. But the buyer? The buyer was livid. Erica had looped me into an email thread with him, a middle-aged man named Anthony Daniels who was relocating from Dallas for work. According to Erica, he'd already wired a sizable deposit. He thought the papers were legitimate. He thought Greg had full authority. He thought he was moving into a sunny 2-bedroom unit with a balcony and a deep soaking tub. He was wrong. Anthony called Erica directly. He said, I want to speak to the wife. I need to understand what the hell is going on. I agreed to speak to him. We met on a video call. He looked tired, clearly stressed, probably the same way I looked 3 days ago before the roles reversed. Mr. Daniels, I said calmly, Greg did not have legal ownership of the property. The deed is in my name alone. He signed it over when we refinanced the mortgage. He blinked. But the documents? He signed all the seller forms. I nodded. Without legal right, which is what makes it fraud. Erica jumped in, clarifying everything with lawyer speak I barely heard because my eyes were focused on Anthony's expression as the truth clicked into place. Greg had hustled him, played it cool, probably promised a quick turnaround, fast cash, and a champagne toast. Instead, Anthony was stuck explaining to his own wife why they'd now have to renegotiate a home search in a tight market. I should have known. Too slick, too easy. You're not the first person Greg's underestimated. And for the first time in days, I meant it with something like compassion. By the end of the call, Anthony agreed to back off the sale and pursue reimbursement through legal means. He told Erica to go after Greg for any damages. That meant potential fraud charges. That meant financial ruin if Greg had already spent the money. That meant everything was spiraling, fast. That night, I came home to find Greg pacing in the living room talking to someone on speaker, probably Chelsea. "No, babe, listen, it's just a mix-up. I'll fix it. She's trying to mess with me. No, it's not illegal. It's complicated." I stood in the doorway, arms crossed, not saying a word. He turned, startled, and immediately clicked off the call. "Don't do this. You're blowing everything out of proportion." I stepped forward, voice low and solid. "You forged the sale of a property you didn't own. You took money under false pretenses. You think this is about proportion?" He opened his mouth, but nothing came out. The thing about con artists is they're only convincing when they think they're winning, but the moment the mark turns out to be smarter than they look, they start to stutter, and Greg was stuttering now. It happened 2 days later. I was sitting at the dining table in leggings and an oversized hoodie, laptop open, coffee cooling beside me, when the front door opened like it still belonged to him. Greg walked in, but this time he wasn't alone. Chelsea. She had that kind of beauty you only get from money and a Pinterest board of soft glam aesthetic. Long chestnut hair, subtle lash extensions, soft peach nails. She was wearing a camel-colored trench coat and carrying a Louis Vuitton tote like she was starring in her own personal pilot episode. "So, this is it," she said, stepping inside like she was touring a listing. "It's smaller than I thought, but cozy." Cozy. I closed my laptop, slow and deliberate. Greg had that stupid, cocky half-smile plastered on his face, like he still believed this could somehow be salvaged, like the last week hadn't happened. He walked over to the kitchen island, dropping his keys like punctuation. "We just need to grab a few things from the guest room," he said, casually, like this was still his to dictate. "We'll be out of your way." I stood up. My heart thudded once, deep and steady, but I kept my voice calm. "You're mistaken." Chelsea tilted her head. "I'm sorry? You're not staying here." Greg laughed. Actually laughed. "Come on, Rachel. Don't be dramatic. Chelsea just needs a place to land until we find something. It's temporary." I walked around the table slowly, like I was approaching something volatile. I stopped in front of Chelsea and met her eyes. Her lip gloss caught the light. "Chelsea," I said, "this is not your temporary anything. This is my home. Not his, not yours, mine." She blinked, thrown off, but still tried to recover. "Greg said he sold it, that you were moving out." He lied. He never had the right to sell it. The deed is in my name. Has been for months. Chelsea turned to Greg, her voice slicing through the space. "What the hell is she talking about?" Greg's smile faltered. "It's just legal red tape. She's twisting things around. The buyer backed out, that's all. It's still gonna happen." "Stop." My voice cut through his sputtering. I turned, opened the drawer in the hallway console, and pulled out the printed copy of the deed. I handed it to Chelsea. She scanned the page. Her face changed. A twitch at the jaw, a subtle narrowing of the eyes. "You told me it was yours?" she said flatly to Greg. "You said the money was coming through." Greg raised his hands. "It is. I didn't think she'd pull this crap." "This crap," I repeated softly, as if testing the weight of the phrase. Chelsea let out a single laugh, sharp and humorless. "So you lied to me about owning a condo, you lied about the sale, about the money. Jesus, Greg!" Greg moved toward her, hands out like a peace offering. "Babe, please, this is just temporary. I can fix it." "No," she said, stepping back. And just like that, the cracks between them split open. She turned, eyes still burning, and walked out. Greg stood frozen, still mid-gesture. I shut the door behind her, turned the lock, and looked at him. "Your fantasy just left," and I hadn't even raised my voice. He just stood there for a moment. Greg, like someone had paused him mid-game. The hand that had reached for Chelsea hung in the air, useless, dumb. Then it slowly dropped to his side. "This is insane," he muttered, like he still believed his words had weight, like saying them out loud might make them true. "What's insane," I said, "is that you thought you could sell something you didn't own, move her in, walk away with a deposit, and I'd just roll over?" He sat down hard on the couch, rubbing his temples like the world was giving him a migraine. But I wasn't done. "You lied to her," I said, "but you lied to yourself more." He looked up, eyes red-rimmed now. "I didn't think you'd fight me like this." That stung. Not because it was surprising, but because it was so predictably Greg. He still thought of me as convenient. The version of me who used to make excuses for his mood swings, who used to make the bed every morning even when I'd cried in it the night before. The version of me who used to say, "It's fine," when it wasn't. "You never thought I'd do a lot of things," I said. He stared at the floor. The silence stretched. "Look," he said finally, voice lower, like we were conspirators again. "I messed up, okay? But you don't need to ruin my life over this. I'll walk away, I'll give you space, just don't push this into court." I tilted my head. "You already took it there. You just didn't expect to be on the losing end." His shoulders sagged. I swear he shrank 2 inches right there. I sat across from him, the coffee table now a war table. I slid the folder across to him. He stared at it like it might explode. "What's this?" "The divorce papers," I said. "Erica drafted them last night. All you have to do is sign. The faster you do, the faster this ends." He looked up, panic flickering behind his eyes. "You're serious?" "Dead serious." He opened the folder, scanned the first page. His lips moved as he read. Then softly, "You really hate me that much?" That made me laugh. Not a cruel laugh, just hollow, worn out. "I don't hate you, Greg." I leaned back in my chair. "I pity you. You had someone who loved you, a home we built, a chance to build something real, but you were too self-absorbed to see it. You sold the wrong thing, Greg." He didn't reply. Just kept staring at the signature line like it was some kind of ultimatum. "You have until Friday. Sign it, pack your stuff, and be gone." He didn't protest. Not this time. And that silence was the closest thing to an apology I was ever going to get. For the next few days, Greg became a ghost with a phone plan. Voicemails, texts, some pleading, some cruel. He was spiraling. "You're blowing up my life over one mistake. Let's talk like adults. We don't need lawyers. You're going to ruin me. Is that what you want? I miss you, Rachel. Please." I read every one of them and replied to none. Every vibration of my phone was like a mosquito bite I refused to scratch. I wanted to forget the sound of his voice, not because it haunted me, but because I'd learned how to live without it. I spent the week working during the day and packing up his things at night, quietly, box by box. His gaming console, his cufflinks, his dumb little brass key tray with the faded Boss Man inscription. Each item went into a cardboard box marked G. No rage, no destruction, just removal. It was like decluttering a storage unit I hadn't realized was weighing me down. Jenna came by with coffee and trash bags. "You want me to burn his old baseball caps?" she joked, twirling one between her fingers. "Nope," I said, taping a box shut. "Let him come collect them like a regular guest." We laughed. It wasn't loud, but it was real. Friday came. He showed up right at dusk, same leather jacket, same tired sneakers, but he looked older now, less smug. He knocked, didn't try to use his key. That was new. I opened the door, and there he was, eyes dull, mouth drawn. He looked past me, into the apartment. It had changed. The couch was in a new position, the plants had been moved closer to the window, his framed jersey was gone. This wasn't his space anymore. He could feel it, that land in his body like gravity. He stepped in and looked at the boxes lined up by the wall. "You packed my stuff?" he said quietly. "I did." He nodded once, sat on the edge of the chair like he wasn't sure it would hold him. "I signed the papers. They're in my bag." He pulled them out, handed them over like an overdue assignment. I took them without comment and walked to the kitchen to check the signature. It was real, sloppy, but real. I placed them gently in the folder and returned to the living room. He stood, not quite ready to go, but knowing he had to. "I didn't mean for it to end like this," he said, eyes glossy. I met his gaze. Neither did I. That silence swelled between us, the kind of silence that holds years. It held that one rainy morning when we argued about money and he kissed me too quickly. It held the weekends he worked late without calling. It held the time I told him I wanted kids and he changed the subject. It held everything. Then I opened the door. He looked at me like he wanted to say something profound, something redemptive. But nothing came. He walked out. I closed the door. This time, I didn't lock it because I was scared. I locked it because I could. That night, the apartment was quiet, but not hollow, not haunted, just still. I padded into the kitchen in fuzzy socks, poured a glass of red wine, and leaned against the counter, listening to nothing but the hum of the refrigerator. For the first time in years, silence didn't feel like punishment. It felt like permission. There were no Greg-sized dents in the room anymore, no emotional booby traps, no watching the door, waiting for the sound of keys, wondering what mood he'd bring home. Just me, just the soft swirl of wine in the glass, just the cool tile under my toes. Jenna showed up an hour later with takeout from that Korean place we used to sneak off to in grad school. Spicy pork bowls, kimchi pancakes, and 2 plastic-wrapped sojus. She plopped down on the couch like she owned the place. "So," she said, tearing open a bag, "is the trash officially out?" I snorted. Curbside pickup was at 7. We ate on the floor like teenagers, dipping dumplings and toasting to idiotic exes. I still can't believe he thought he could just sell your place. He thought I wouldn't notice or wouldn't fight. She paused, took a sip. "But you did." And I did. We laughed more than we cried. That was new. That was everything. She helped me move furniture after dinner. We spun the couch around to face the window, angled the armchair under the reading lamp, brought the big fig tree in from the balcony. Each movement felt like a declaration. This is mine now. This is what I want. I pulled Greg's old framed motivational quote off the wall, "Hustle until it hurts," and slid it behind the bookcase. Replaced it with a canvas print I bought years ago and had never hung up because he said it looked too girly. Soft pink tones, moody blues, and gold foil accents. My vibe. Around midnight, Jenna pulled a spare blanket over her lap, wine glass still in hand. She asked if I was okay. I nodded. For the first time in forever, yeah. I'm not waiting for the other shoe to drop. I think I've already stepped on all the broken glass. She smiled. You know what I love? The fact that you didn't just survive this, you flipped it. You made it poetic. I blinked back something hot. He laughed when he told me. On the phone. Like it was a joke I just wasn't in on. She didn't try to fix it, just leaned her head on my shoulder. We sat in the dim light, two women in the afterglow of wreckage, sipping wine and breathing deep. Outside the window, the city blinked and buzzed. Someone's life ending in one apartment, someone else's beginning in another. Mine was just blooming. No grand gestures, no declarations, just this. The quiet truth that I had stayed, and he hadn't. It happened when I was reorganizing the closet in the hallway, the one I used to call his space. I was down on my knees, sorting boxes, folding old scarves into donation piles, when I found it. A small, beat-up photo album, one of those cheap plastic ones you get printed at the drugstore. I hadn't seen it in years. The last time we touched it was after our 3rd anniversary. We were tipsy off cheap red wine, sitting cross-legged on the living room rug, laughing over how young we looked in our engagement photos. I flipped it open. There we were, smiling at Navy Pier, me in a windbreaker that swallowed my frame, him in that stupid backwards cap he wore for good luck. We were holding cotton candy between us like some cheesy postcard. In another, we're on the L train, making silly faces. And another, a dimly lit selfie in the condo before it had furniture. My bare feet on polished wood, his hand over mine. I sat down on the floor, album in my lap, the rest of the world blurring out. I didn't cry. Not really. My throat tightened, sure. My chest pulled inward, yeah, but no tears. Because I wasn't mourning him. I was mourning me. The version of me in those photos. The one who tried so damn hard to believe we were building something real. The girl who read between the lines of his indifference and convinced herself it was just stress, or work, or bad sleep. She deserved better. I gave that girl a moment, let her exist on my lap, smiling in glossy 4x6s. Then I slid the album into a padded envelope, wrote "for storage" on the front, and tucked it into a drawer behind old paperwork. I wasn't ready to throw it away, but I wasn't going to look at it again either. Some things you file away not because they matter, but because they don't anymore. I stood up, dusted off my hands, and returned to the rest of the mess. Later that afternoon, I added a few more touches to the apartment, hung up a new art print above the bed, rearranged the bookshelves by color, not subject, because it looked pretty, and I liked it that way. Greg would have hated it. I smiled at that. That night, I lit a candle. Lavender cedar, my favorite. He used to complain it was too floral, so I stopped buying it. Now it sat proudly on the coffee table, flame dancing in the dark. One couch, one glass of wine, one woman, and not an ounce of regret. Because even when you lose something you loved, if what you gain is yourself, you win.
The divorce finalized on a Thursday. No courtroom drama, no final tearful showdown, just an envelope from Erica with a copy of the final decree. crisp and boring and official. I stared at the black and white letters like they might suddenly start glowing or pulsing with emotion or scream, "You did it!" But they didn't. They just sat there, clean, cold, done. And that's when it really hit me. It didn't feel like an explosion, it felt like an exhale. I was sitting on my couch that evening, legs tucked under me, tea steeping in a mug Jenna got me that says, "Plot twist, she needed no one." The apartment smelled like sandalwood and fresh laundry. I looked around the space and saw only me, my things, my rhythm, my home. Greg hadn't texted, hadn't called. Maybe his lawyer told him to stop. Maybe Chelsea blocked his number. Maybe, for once, he'd finally run out of angles to play. There was nothing left for him here. The condo wasn't just reclaimed, it had transformed. Not by renovations or paint, by energy. It felt lighter, warmer, like someone opened a window after a storm and let the air change everything. I spent the weekend doing things I hadn't done in years. I made pancakes for dinner, took a bath in the middle of the day, played music too loud, and danced barefoot through the hallway. The absence of Greg didn't ache, it pulsed with possibility. I went to brunch Sunday morning alone, sat at the window with a book and a mimosa, and when the server asked if I was waiting for anyone, I smiled. No, just me today. Just me. I was learning how to enjoy that, not just tolerate it, not fill the silence with noise, just exist in it. I still had healing to do, still had nights where I woke up and reached for someone who wasn't there. But each day felt more mine. Each hour a reminder that my life didn't end when he walked out. It began. There's a moment, somewhere after the chaos, when everything quiets, when your body relaxes into the truth you thought would destroy you, and you realize it didn't. Greg tried to take everything, but what he really gave me was freedom. Freedom doesn't always show up like a victory parade. Sometimes it comes in the form of a late-night candle, a perfectly made bed, or a solo grocery run without commentary. So here's my question to you. Have you ever walked away from something that once defined you, only to realize you were finally meeting yourself? Drop your story in the comments. I want to hear it. And if this journey meant something to you, like the video, subscribe, and share it with someone who needs a reminder that endings can be beginnings. You're not broken. You're rebuilding. And that's its own kind of power.